My name is Father Mike Schmitz. I am from the Diocese of Duluth, Minnesota, which you guys don't have no idea how excited I am to be here because you know where we are. We're in Duluth, Georgia. And so every time I've gone on Google Chrome and typed in anything about Duluth, it always comes up, do you mean Duluth, Georgia or Duluth, Minnesota? I'm like, I don't know. Because I'm finally here and all my dreams are fulfilled. I can die right after this Mass and I'm totally taken care of. Full circle. You know, I've just up in Minnesota just a couple days ago, we had this one band. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. They're just kind of this small band, just 5 guys are in it. They came to Minneapolis. Their name, they call them something about like One Way or... So One Direction came to Minneapolis. And I have 3 friends who wanted to go to the concert, but they didn't have tickets the day of because apparently all the tickets were sold in 15 minutes. And so this was like a year ago. And so all these friends were like, okay, Father Mike, will you drive us downtown Minneapolis so that we can, kind of do the rush, go to the box office and see if we can get some free, or not free tickets, but see if we can get tickets. It's like, well, I have nothing else to do. I mean, I'm a priest. I work 1 hour a week. So no problem. So I drove them downtown Minneapolis, and we got to this place called the Target Center, which is where One Direction was going to play that night. And it was 95 degrees out. It was noon. The concert wasn't until like 8 that night. And the streets were packed with all of these young people. I should be more specific, with all of these young women who were waiting for One Direction to show up. I mean, and it's crazy because Harry was tweeting, we're in the LA airport. And they're like waiting for them. They were walking up, so I had to, drop these girls off, my friends, who also wanted to go to the get tickets, and drive around the block. And I kept going past these buses. And these girls would come up and they'd like knock on the bus door, like maybe One Direction is in there just hanging out in the bus. Because the fact that there's a huge building right next to them, like no, they would stay on the bus. I mean, the buses are really comfortable. So at one point, like the barrier thing, there was a barrier thing. You have to take my word for it. It fell, and a security guy was going to pick it up. And I noticed all of these girls had run over to help him pick up the little security barrier. I thought that was nice of them to do. And I thought, I wonder why they did that. I know why I would do it. I would do it with the idea that here I'm going to help the security guy pick up the barrier. Maybe 1D is in their bus going, who are those people helping? You guys, come in for free. Hang out with us on the bus. Because when we're doing something good, we want to get caught. Brian talked about last night about Zacchaeus in the tree, right? He wanted to see Jesus, but he didn't necessarily want to be seen by Jesus. And I was thinking about this because a couple days ago, my family's all in my hometown. My parents live on a lake, and so I was hanging out at the lake in the morning. Again, 1 hour a week, you guys. The priesthood, consider it. I was hanging out with my family on the lake, and I had to drive from the lake all the way to Duluth, Minnesota, to celebrate Mass. And so I was kind of cruising a little bit faster than the speed limit recommends that I go. And I wasn't paying attention to whether other law enforcement were in the area. So I look up, and I see a state trooper coming right at me, and I'm like, oh, no. And look in my rearview mirror, and he's whipping around. I'm like, oh, no. So I knew I was guilty, so I just pulled over to the side of the road and waited for him to catch up to me. And he parks his car and he walks up, and I had my driver's license, registration was right there next to the window. And he's like, oh, I see you have all your paperwork. I'm like, yes, officer. He says, do you know how fast you were going? And I said, I think I was probably going 75. It was a 55, FYI. And yeah, I was late for Mass, you guys. I was like, probably 75. He said, oh, that was really honest of you. I got you at 73. It's like, oh, well, I'm an honest guy. He said, you headed to Duluth? I said, yes. And he said, what are you driving so fast for? I'm on my way to church. And he looks at me, I was like, no, I'm serious. I'm honest. I'm not making that up. I'm not going to church. He's like, okay, interesting. So what do you got to get there? What church? And okay, I'm coming from the lake, so I just got like shorts and flip-flops on, and I'm like, I know I'm not dressed like it, but I'm a priest, and I need to celebrate Mass on the campus of the University of Minnesota Duluth. And he's like, oh, that makes sense. Anyway, he takes my stuff, goes back to his car. I'm thinking, I don't know, whatever. I'm guilty. I'm caught. And he walks up and he says, I was going to give you a warning. But I noticed you have a few tickets. Now, that's actually not technically true. The last ticket I ever got was 5 years ago. But last year, I was given 2 warnings in 1 year. So you got 2 warnings last year alone. You know, the third time is I have to automatically give you a ticket because on the third warning, it's 3 strikes, ticket. But he says, but you're honest with me, and you're on your way to church, and the state's going to give you some grace today. So here's your warning. Read it, rip it up. Please drive the speed limit. I'm like, thank you so much. I was so grateful. I love that. The state is going to give you some grace today. Thank you, state of Minnesota, for giving me what I'm accustomed to receive from the church. And I pulled away going 55 miles an hour. The rest of the trip, 55 miles an hour. That night, I had to drive all the way up to northern Minnesota, 55 miles an hour. I was obeying the speed limit so well, I wanted to get caught. Like, that was the problem. So at first, I was so grateful. I did not deserve this grace in any way, shape, or form. Like, I was guilty. I should have been busted. But the trooper gave me grace, and I was so thankful that I wanted to live like that. So I was driving 55, which, if you're accustomed to driving faster than that, feels extremely, extremely slow. So here I am, obeying the speed limit out of gratitude for the cop. And I started to resent it. Because the rest of the next 3 days, I'm driving all over the place, and I did not see one police officer. And I wanted to get caught. I wanted to get caught doing the right thing. I wanted the police officer to drive by me and say, hey, you're driving 55. Well done. But no one was noticing, and no one cares. And so I started thinking, like, what the heck? Why would I want to keep driving the speed limit and going so slow? I mean, it is the law, you guys, so this is my fault. But I ended up resenting the grace that I was given when I tried to do the right thing because I was asking the question, does anyone notice? Does anyone even care? Like, a lot of times that can be our story. Here's Zacchaeus changes his life after meeting Jesus. And he could ask the question, does anyone even notice? Does Jesus even care that now I gave, half my income and I gave people that I swindled 4 times over the amount of money that I took from them? Does Jesus even notice? Does Jesus even care? And that could be the big question a lot of us ask this weekend. It could be that you experience an incredible amount of grace. And you're like, I'm going to live my life differently. But then I can start resenting it. Well, does God even notice? Does God even care? Does my life even make a difference? And one of the things when it comes to the scriptures is that throughout the whole Bible, throughout the entire Bible, are stories of people that reveal to us that God notices everything you do. Yeah, the bad stuff, he knows that. But he also notices the great stuff you do, and he also cares. And this is the thing, is that God chooses people throughout the entire Bible, and the choices that they make a difference. Them living in grace, it makes a difference. It actually changes the world. This is the story of the Bible. Here's one person who comes up. Here's Moses, and responds to God in grace, responds to God in faith, and it makes a difference. It saves a whole people. Before him was Joseph, one person living by faith, and that saves a whole people. Throughout the entire Bible are people who say, I'm going to just choose this, and it will make a difference. And the reality is this, you guys, you right now, you have the power to make a difference because God sees your actions. He notices them, and he cares, and they make a difference. Imagine having that much power. Imagine being able, through your decisions, to save the world. Would you start resenting that? I don't know if any of you saw Man of Steel this summer. Okay, like 3 people. I don't know, you guys. It was kind of a box office smash. You guys need to see some more movies. Watch more TV. Watch more movies. Listen to more music. Get on the internet more. These are the lessons. Just take them home. Pray with them. So this movie, Man of Steel, here's Superman. At one point, critical moment in the movie, Lois Lane she's in this little shuttle thing that's hurtling to Earth. She is gonna die. On Earth, there's General Zod with all of his other Kryptonians, superpowered, and they're gonna destroy Earth. And here is Kal-El, Superman, talking to Jor-El, his dad, and his father. Superman looks down, he sees Lois hurtling to Earth. He looks down and he sees Zod doing all this stuff on earth, and his father says, "You can save her. You can save them all." And Superman doesn't go like, I just wanted a sandwich. Like, do I have to save them all? Like, I might get punched through buildings for the next hour. There's a long fight scene at the end of that movie, I'll tell you. But what he does do is he does this moment, I don't know if you noticed in the movie, rather than just like jumping out of the spaceship and flying to save Lois, he like slowly, like he opens his arms and then floats backwards in a cruciform shape. Like, I wonder what Zack Snyder, the director, is trying to make any connections with. Superman, you can save them all. You know, this kind of thing. Like, Zack Snyder actually said, like, he made all these connections. I want pastors to preach on Superman this Sunday. So, Zack Snyder, it's Saturday, but close enough. Superman didn't resent this fact because it's like, no, I have the ability to do this. God notices, God cares, it makes a difference. I'm going to do it. Sometimes we might not resent it, but sometimes we might think, like, what difference would it make? Like, me, my little life, my little choices? Like, who will it really affect? There's a story, years ago I heard it. What happened was the tides had come in on this beach, and when the tides went back, they deposited a bunch of starfish. Now, starfish are living creatures, and out of the water they die. And so what happens is this beach was completely littered with just hundreds and thousands of starfish. And this little boy was walking along the beach, and what he would do is he'd bend down, he'd pick up a starfish and throw it into the water. And he'd bend down and pick up a starfish and throw it into the water and go work his way down the beach. But there's so many, he could never do it all. And this man comes along and sees this little boy doing this, and he says, "How ridiculous. What are you trying to do? What difference does your picking up starfish and throwing them into, what difference, look at all these starfish. What difference will it make to do what you're doing? Doesn't make any difference." And the little boy looks at the man, looks away, and he bends down, he picks up a starfish, and he says, "It makes a difference to this one," and throws it in the water. Because I might not be able to save them all. You can at least save some. That's why we're doing this whole thing at lunch today, you know? Think of this. Every meal that you package, it's not just a meal, that's a person. That's one person who may live because you took 5 minutes to put this meal together. You know, every day, 30,000 children die of hunger. Every day, 30,000 children die of hunger. And today, every meal you make, every meal you put together, what difference will this one meal make in the space of all 30,000 who die every day? Well, it'll make a difference to this kid. You have more influence than you think. You can do more different, you can make more difference than you might know. God notices, God cares, and your decisions actually make a difference. It makes a change. You know, you ask yourself this question. What if, well, let me ask you this question. You don't have to ask yourself. I'll get you off the hook. You have to answer it, though. If you could change one thing in the church, if you could change one thing in the church, what would it be? Just think to yourself. Just think in your head. That's where most people do their thinking. If you could change one thing in the church, what would it be? Now, some people say, well, I'd change this teaching, or I'd change how we do this, or how we do that. Mother Teresa was once asked that same question. Remember Mother Teresa of Calcutta? Mother Teresa was asked that question. Mother Teresa, if you could change one thing in the church, what would it be? And she didn't hesitate. She knew. She said, if I could change one thing in the church, I'd change me. I don't know how many of you came up with that one in your head. If I could change one thing in the church, I'd change me. Because she knew that the difference of one life, the difference one life can make, one life given over to Jesus, actually has the power to change the world. What do I mean by that? A life lived for Christ. What does that look like? What does it look like to love Jesus? What does it look like to fall in love with God? What does it look like to give your life to Jesus? It means this. It's really practical. It means because I love Jesus, that changes how I act. What I mean is, it changes what kind of songs I listen to. Because if I want to actually love Jesus, it means it changes actually the movies that I watch. It changes the TV shows that I watch. It changes what books I read or what magazines I read. If I really want to love Jesus in a practical way, it's going to change what kind of words I use when I talk to people. Let's get really practical. If I really want to love Jesus and belong to him, it's going to change what I do with my time. What I do with my time. What I do with my time. I mean, think of any of the great saints in the history of the church. Last 2,000 years of the church. Here's one guy, Saint Benedict. You know, our last Holy Father took the name Benedict because Saint Benedict, what he did, he saved Western civilization. What he did, his decisions that he made, changed the course of humanity, changed the course of Western civilization. One guy. Like, what did he do? Did he set out to make this manifesto? Did he set out to, just save the world? No, what he did is this. He met Jesus, and he said, because Jesus is real, because he's really God, I'm going to spend time with him. Benedict went out of his little village and went up in the mountains just to pray. I'm going to spend time with Jesus. People saw that, and they were drawn to live like that too. Not because he did anything flashy, but just because he was willing to spend time with Jesus. Saved Western civilization. A number of years later, same thing happened. A guy named St. Francis. The world around him, the church around him was just falling into ruins. And this guy, he met Jesus, and he allowed that to affect where he spent his time, how he spent his time. So he went and just started praying. And that has changed the world. Our new Pope, Francis. Just these two guys. Their lives have changed the world. Why? Because they simply changed how they spent their time. And the big thing that we have to ask ourselves is, am I willing to change how I spend my time for Jesus? The test, if there's any one, but there's many of them, one of the tests for whether I'm a disciple of Jesus or not is this question. Am I willing to rearrange my schedule in order to get closer to Jesus? If I'm not, then I'm not really living as a mature disciple of Jesus. Am I willing to change my schedule in order to get closer to Jesus? Yeah, I'm so busy. Yeah, I believe that you're busy. I mean, you guys, again, I only work 1 hour a week. So it's easy for me. I know it's hard for you, but the question is this. Are you willing to change your schedule, your busy schedule, in order to get closer to Jesus? If you're not a disciple. If you are, even if you fail, guess what you are? You're a disciple. You're a world changer. If you're willing to change that. This is the last thing. So my little brother, have you guys heard of P90X? So P90X, Tony Horton, does the whole thing. I know a number of people who have done P90X now. I have started it 8 times. I have not gotten to month 3 yet. You might be able to tell. But I've noticed this happens. There's a number of people that I've talked to who have done P90X, and I'll talk to them the day after or the week after they've completed the entire thing. I'm like, hey, have you ever heard of P90X? Yeah, I just finished. I'm like, really? I didn't say it like that. Inside, internal voice, head voice. Oh, okay. Did you do all the workouts? Because I can't see a difference. But there was one guy, my little brother, he did P90X, but what he does is he does it all. When he got done with P90X, again, my parents live on a lake, so we're at the lake, and he takes off his shirt. I'm like, holy smokes, he's got veins coming down his stomach and stuff, and he's ripped to shreds. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's, well, I just finished P90X. I'm like, no. I know people who have finished P90X, and they did not look like you. His words were, well, you have to do the diet too. And almost everybody I've talked to has done the workouts of P90X, and so they just beat themselves up for 3 months. They do all the workouts. They put themselves through torture in order to get a beach body. But you see them afterwards, and they're like, no, there's no difference. Why? Because the thought was, well, if I do all this work, then it doesn't matter what I put into my system, because I'm working out so hard. But the reality is, if you want to see a difference, you have to change what you're taking in. One of the realities that we're all gonna experience is this. You might say, oh, God, change my time. I'll put the time in. I'll get close to Jesus. I'll spend time with him in prayer. Or maybe I'll go to daily mass. But if you and I are not willing to change what we're taking in, there will be no difference. I make a holy hour every day. Really? You? Well, yeah, because I make a holy hour, then I can watch whatever I want. Or because I go to daily mass and I eat Jesus every day, that means that I can read whatever kind of magazines I want, whatever kind of books I want. I can listen to whatever kind of music I want. It doesn't really affect me. I know there's a couple words in there, a couple ideas in there, but it doesn't really change me. Well, no, it doesn't really change you because you're not changed, because your time with Jesus doesn't change you either. You guys, this call to make a difference, the call to belong to Jesus, the call to love Jesus is so practical. It's not doing something huge. It's just letting Jesus determine how you spend your day. He notices. He cares. It makes a difference. And as someone famous once said, loving God, there's nothing more practical than falling in love or loving God. Who you love determines when you get out of bed. Falling in love determines who you spend your time with. Falling in love determines what kind of books you read. Falling in love determines what kind of movies you're willing to watch. Falling in love determines what kind of songs you're willing to listen to. Falling in love determines everything that we do. Fall in love with God. Stay in love with God. And that makes all of the difference.